I want to start at the beginning of this show with you, if we can.
Yeah.
So this is a character you have spent so many years evolving and growing and having these arcs with. And now in Loki, we start with the 2012 version, who hasn't experienced Ragnarok and the Dark World and Infinity War. He just got done trying to invade New York City.
Yes.
So tell me about this Loki and getting back into this character. What is his mindset? What's the number one priority for this guy who just had a hell of a day?
That's why you taking the words out of my mouth. Like, it was really interesting to go sort of unstitch the character development of Dark World, Ragnarok, Infinity War, and it's almost like time travel for myself and go back to where Loki's head's at in that moment. And yeah, his ego's pretty bruised. The Avengers just assembled because of him for the first time to stop him from taking over New York City. And he got smashed around by the Hulk, which didn't feel great. And yeah, so he's pretty bruised and broken, and he still has all of that entitlement and grievance, I suppose. He feels like, in the events of the first Thor movie, he found out about his true lineage, and he felt very betrayed and lost and let down by his family, and so all of that, he's kind of carrying all this damage, I suppose. But for me personally, it was just going back and trying on my costume from the first Avengers movie and being relieved that it still fit.
Yeah.
Because it could have gone the other way.
That's pretty much it right there. I got it right here.
There you go.
Yeah, I already got the merch from this show.
There you go.
I love it. So these are 6 episodes of the show. Which episode are you most excited for people to see? Do you think is going to get the biggest reaction?
Oh, that is a really good question. I know that I think 4 and 5 for me, if that's when the show just kind of takes these big leaps forward. I'm really, really intrigued by to see what people think of the end of 4, beginning of 5. It's like, yeah, poor Loki. Poor Loki gets
Poor Loki.
Oh, well, if that's possible.
And he does this to himself. Sometimes.
His own worst enemy. He gets in his own way.
So my last thing for you, I want to talk about the Infinity War, the scene where Thanos kills Loki.
Yeah.
It seems like Loki, he puts on the show that he's ready to betray Thor, but clearly he's bought in a little bit to that relationship through these years. I'd love to, can you give me a peek into Loki's mindset there? What were kind of his final thoughts as Thanos was choking him out and he was sacrificing himself to save his brother?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that whole scene is overwhelmingly terrifying for both Thor and Loki from the moment that film opens. Yeah, and I think genuinely, he's seen Thor in some tight spots before, but he's always trusted that his brother will find a way out of it. And in that moment, he knows, if he doesn't do anything, that his brother will die at Thanos' hand. And when he first starts speaking, I think he's just stalling for time. He says, if you're going to Earth, you might want a guide, have a bit of experience in that arena. And he's just trying to think of a way of stalling Thanos and he's improvising. And then I think he realizes, I've only got one shot at this. And it might not work, but at least I'll have saved my brother and I'll go down swinging. And I always found that very touching, is that, when he knows what he's going to do. And in Loki's defense, I know some people have been, why does he use a knife and stuff? But he does go for the head, and he almost makes it. So he knows how to do that. But I always found it very touching that when he's listening, he's sort of introducing himself. He says, "I, Loki of Jotunheim, Prince of Asgard, God of Mischief, Odin's son," and he calls himself an Odin's son. And really, those movies up until that point have been, especially from Loki's perspective, is like who gets to call themselves an Odin's son, and the fact that he kind of addresses himself in that way and looks at Thor I found really touching. So yeah, I think in that moment, what's going through Loki's mind? Damn, didn't work, I guess. But hoping that Thor will find a way out.
I love the show.
Great, thank you.
Of course. Have you seen through the years that your co-star here, Tom Hiddleston, he's done a few impressions of you over the years?
Yes, I'm aware of that. And he was, he never did it for me during the shoot. Maybe he's saving it for the premiere. But, Tom was also, he has some very good DJ skills, because a lot of times when he would kind of come on set and to kind of help get everybody in the right frame of mind, he would kind of cue up something. And it was always just what we needed to hear.
Oh, that's awesome. I've seen him perform live here in Nashville, actually. I saw him play the guitar. It was pretty cool. He's pretty talented when it comes to music.
Yeah, he's very into music.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, though, one of the things he does with those impressions is back like during the Avengers press tour, he was like doing Owen Wilson as Loki. And this is a show where we see a lot of different kind of bodies for Loki. Any chance we do get that, proper Owen Wilson as Loki down the road?
Yeah, I wonder if there would be an opportunity to do that. That could be a good little story idea to explore. I like that idea.
I would love to see it. Now, Mobius is a character from Marvel Comics with a pretty big size history. When you bring in time travel, it all gets pretty complicated. What was your introduction to the character? And you're doing a very unique version of him. I think you're really expanding on it in just 2 episodes.
I had zero experience with the character, and it was really, I was just kind of a blank slate listening to what the director and the writers and listening to Tom kind of talk about the whole sort of mythology of the MCU. And so I just kind of tried to absorb what they were saying. And then, one thing that was kind of helpful is just sort of the look that my character had. And, I kind of get that look and put on my TVA suit, and that helped me feel like Mobius.
Dude, you slip right into that character by the look of it. You do such a good job in the part. It's so cool. And so Tom tells me he thinks episodes 4 and 5 are the big ones. I'm curious from you, which episode is like the big one, the big wow episode that's going to blow everybody away?
It's funny, I kind of thought of it as just sort of one story, kind of like a movie. And so I don't know the exact, if the episode, I know that people really like episode 3, or they're really happy with that. But I think my favorite episode or part of the story is further along. Okay. And, it involves just something that I thought was really a great idea and really cool to see.
That's a perfect tease. It's hard to believe you're new to Marvel, because that was a really good tease without getting yourself in trouble. Now, listen, before I let you go, Wedding Crash was one of my favorite movies ever. We heard it's go. You guys are returning this summer to film more, a sequel. Can you tell me anything about that? What that story might be like, if that's true?
Well, we've definitely been talking about it. It was one of those movies that people seem to, just like you were saying, really respond to. And it's always great working with Vince. And we'll see what happens. I don't think it's definite, but we'll see. Congrats
on the show. It's so good. It's so much fun to watch.
Oh, I'm so glad. I can see that you're a fan with the Infinity Stones. Yes. So if you approve, then I feel like we've done a good job.
Well, you guys are knocking it out of the park. I've got so much here, and I hope to have some more Loki merch back here soon. But I want to talk about the show with you. You are playing B-15, Hunter B-15. And this is a character unique to the show, not from comics. So I want to hear from you. What was your introduction to Hunter B-15? How did they kind of tell you about this character?
I mean, Kate Herron, she spoke me through the whole of the Marvel Universe, from Captain America and Iron Man all the way to the last episode of Loki. And so and how we all entwine and wherever, like, So it was interesting because I had seen, once I was offered the part, I had seen like all of, Loki throughout the shows and the films. And then, knowing that we start in 2012, I was like, oh, okay. So then all of this hasn't happened yet. Interesting. So yeah, it was like a jigsaw puzzle, like trying to figure it out.
So now that you've been schooled on all the other MCU characters, who's the one you think would be the most fun to get to take into the TVA next?
Ooh, I mean, I feel like they're all great. Like they're all fun. And the thing about bringing someone into the TVA means that they've done something wrong. They've gone against the timeline. And so I guess and that means it's probably someone I'm going to have to, I don't know, fight with or something. I don't know.
I feel like Tony Stark would just get a little ahead of himself and end up there. Like, you know what I mean? That guy's a little too cocky. Do you, what is it? You do such a good job working with Tom and the relationship with Loki where you just can't trust this guy. I would love to hear from you about crafting that dynamic and whether you think Loki's ever a guy who could be trusted by the TVA.
So Tom and I know each other. So he was my third year at drama school when I was first year. Oh, so awesome. kind of like getting that relationship. It was really easy because we know and trust each other. So we can play and there's always good feelings between us. So it was nice. It was just like pushing the boundaries, seeing how far we can go with each other. It was great. Cool. So it was just joyful. It was just playful, the whole experience.
My last thing for you then, you've been a part of DC with Batman vs Superman. You joined the MCU with Loki. Which of these two franchises likes to keep their secrets tighter? Which one really makes sure you don't even call mom and say what's going on?
Well, I was just terrified on both about doing any of that. And my mom's terrified about knowing what I'm in because she really doesn't want to know until it's out because she doesn't want to let it slip at church. So they're both quite scary, but I guess, they both are. Like, there's no getting around it. Like, you don't want to break your NDA.
First of all, I just want to start by saying a movie you were in that has stuck with me has been Beyond the Lights. I really love that movie.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
So I'm a big fan and I'm very excited to talk with you. And I'm obviously a big Marvel fan, so I'm so happy to see you be a part of the MCU. And that's where I want to start. Your introduction to the MCU, have they schooled you on all the things you can and can't say yet? How's it been so far?
I can basically say nothing at all.
Yeah, so what can't you say? Can I just hear about that?
Watch the show. That's all I can really say.
Oh, God.
Some of it. You've seen the first couple.
I have seen the first two, and they're so good. They're so good.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
So you come in as Judge Renslayer, and this is a character who Renslayer has a big history in comics. It's kind of a confusing history in comics, depending on how you get it delivered to you. How much of the complicated story in comics have you become familiar with versus how much have they given you for the show, and how much have you just stayed focused right there?
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily for me, the way that Kate Herron, our director, pitched it to me is that, as we see Renslayer in the TVA and in Loki, this is somewhat of an origin story to what we know of in the comics. So it sort of predates what's in the comics, which is kind of fun because obviously there's so many places that it could go.
There really are. And we know Jonathan Majors is playing Kang already in the Ant-Man movie. That's a romance. That's like a world domination romance. Now, I don't know if they've told you anything, but does that sound like something that would be fun to carry out? Like take over the world, travel through time, kind of with like a... I
mean, I would love that. I don't know. We shall see. We shall see what happens. I couldn't possibly divulge any information about that.
I can't believe this is your first Marvel junket. You're a pro. You're giving. But But had you watched all of the other Marvel movies or any of them before you joined this? Were you familiar with Loki and the Asgardian lore and everything?
I mean, I was definitely familiar, but I have to confess I hadn't watched every single movie. So I did, go back and look at them all for research, which was kind of probably the most fun research I've ever had to do. And obviously Tom, having played Loki for 10 years, is such an authority on the world and the characters. So he was also a great reference point as well.
Is there anybody else in the MCU, whether it's the character or the cast member, who you think would just be a lot of fun to process them through the TVA and kind of make sure that they get it together if they've been acting up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's sacred timelines?
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, so many characters. I'm a big fan of Scarlett Johansson. So I think Black Widow would be a really cool character to bring through the TVA, and I'd love to see her and Renslayer face off. I think that could be fun.
I love it. Well, listen, thank you so much for the time. I can't wait to see where your story goes in the MCU and in Loki. Love it so far.